Muito bom dia, minhas senhoras e meus senhores. Quero-vos dar as boas-vindas a esta nossa reunião. Os objetivos da nossa universidade sempre foi, desde há alguns anos, a intenção da nossa universidade assegurar o ensino da língua inglesa aos nossos licenciados em todos os cursos. O único curso que não tem 2 anos de língua inglesa neste momento é só o curso de Direito, e isso é mesmo uma lacuna, porque muitos dos nossos juristas depois têm trabalhado em âmbito internacional, isso é uma limitação. E um dos nossos objetivos sempre foi montar aqui uma escola de línguas que permitisse um tipo de ensino mais diferenciado do que aquele ensino tradicional que nós temos ao nível das licenciaturas. Porquê? Porque nós temos muitos estudantes que vêm da Namíbia, África do Sul, que dominam plenamente o inglês e vão ser introduzidos na mesma turma juntamente com estudantes que estudam francês no secundário, que têm um inglês bastante fraco. E o enquadramento desses estudantes e depois a gestão dessas turmas é extremamente complicado. O objetivo era começarmos a montar uma estrutura que pudesse trabalhar de outra forma, fazendo seleção dos estudantes, fazendo a avaliação das suas competências e assegurar uma formação mais personalizada de acordo com as competências de cada um deles. Este é um primeiro passo, parece-me, a criar esses clubes de inglês. Criámos um departamento de línguas estrangeiras, desfiado pelo Dr. Luís Costa aqui presente. E, portanto, gostava de vos dar as boas-vindas e desejava que o vosso trabalho seja profícuo e frutuoso. E como vocês representam outras universidades, nós estamos neste momento a celebrar acordos com um conjunto de instituições de ensino superior aqui desta região para colaborarmos conjuntamente em áreas de formação de professores, formação pós-graduada, investigação. Naturalmente, se calhar no domínio do ensino das línguas, depois podemos estender essa cooperação às outras instituições, dentro dos nossos interesses também, e da própria localização geográfica, que isto também às vezes é determinante. Mais uma vez, reforçar as minhas boas-vindas e desejar que o vosso trabalho corra da melhor maneira e que seja profícuo. Muito obrigado.
Bem-vindo, vice-reitor Rocha. Muito obrigada pela hospitalidade hoje aqui na Universidade Gregório Smedley. Chamo-me Sadie, eu sou a secretária adjunta de Imprensa, Cultura e Educação na Embaixada. Sinto-me muito feliz e orgulhosa de cá estar aqui com o senhor e mais de 30 parceiros para avançar neste novo programa, os Globos de Inglês. Antes da introdução, o Dr. Bryce Smedley, especialista em língua inglesa, gostaria de sublinhar que os Estados Unidos da América estão mais do que nunca comprometidos em melhorar acesso aos recursos de inglês e oportunidades de liderança aos jovens por meio de parcerias com as instituições de educação, atores do sector privado e de sociedade civil. Com o partido de iniciativa English for All, o Inglês para Todos, a Embaixada dos Estados Unidos oferece recursos educacionais e professores nativos aos países participantes. Nesta semana, a Embaixada estabeleceu uma parceria com o Cabinda Golf Company em Cabinda, a Universidade Agostinho Neto e a Universidade 11 de Novembro para trazer a Angola o Dr. Bryce Smedley. Esta é agora revitalizando os nossos esforços coletivos para oferecer inglês a tudo. Nas últimas 6 semanas, o Dr. Smedley tem estado a instruir professores na Universidade 11 de Novembro, em Cabinda, bem como a Universidade Agostinho Neto, cá em Luanda. Antes de retornar aos Estados Unidos, o Dr. Smedley concordou em oferecer treinamento gratuito hoje a voluntários do mundo a criar jogos de inglês em Angola. Ele tem imensa experiência em ensinar jogos de inglês na República Democrática do Congo. Mais precisamente, sua experiência em transformar 3 jogos entre 170 unidades em 2 anos. Então, uma vez, obrigada pelo vocês interesse em garantir que haja inglês para tudo em Angola. So with that, I will pass the floor over to Bryce Smedley, our English language specialist, visiting us from the United States, so that he can begin the workshop. Thank you.
Okay. So, before we start though, in the United States, when students have high respect for their teachers or their professors, we have a tradition of giving the professor or teacher an apple. Yeah? So we want to give you an apple today, although you cannot eat it, but it is an apple as a sign of gratitude for allowing us to come here and having us as your guest, not only at this institute, but also in Angola. So this is a paper-weight apple. And the name of my college on it. Anything else next? One photo with the apple of knowledge. Wonderful. Here's a box for it, like that. Okay, so I'm not going to use a microphone because my profession as a teacher I have a teacher's voice, yeah? So for those that are not teachers, sometimes they need the assistance of a microphone, yeah? But I do not, so. My name is Bryce Smedley, as was mentioned. I'm an English language specialist with the State Department, but my full-time job is I am a assistant professor. I'm a professor at a small college in Idaho, in Lewis Clark State College. And what I teach is teacher education. So I teach students who are going to be primary or secondary teachers. In the United States, they go through a program and they take examinations and all that to be licensed. And my focus or my specialty is on teaching English to speakers of other languages, or TESOL. As you might be aware, TESOL is an international organization, and they have a conference every year, and they also give scholarships. So it's important that people who are English language learners or teachers or professionals attend those if you can, and they're always looking to give scholarships to people and folks coming from sub-Saharan Africa because they believe that it's underrepresented. So if you do research or you have activities, definitely check out TESOL International. On a side note too, just so you're aware, for those of you who might be teachers or language learners, sometimes it's always difficult finding resources. So a website that you may be aware of is called American English at State Department. And there you can find free books, free games, free lesson activities, all kinds of things. So if you're struggling to find things for an English club or for a classroom, please check out American English at State Department. And there are so many free resources that it would be too much, but it's a free resource that's provided by the United States to learners of English. This is a great website to direct your learners or club members or students or what be it to. So today we're talking about creating, sustaining English language clubs to enhance English language learning. A little bit more about myself. Before I was in the Congo for 2 years, I worked in Comoros. Does anyone know where Comoros is? Who can tell me where Comoros is? Oh, so see the silence. Who can tell me where Comoros is? Who has the answer? Okay. Where is Comoros? Yeah, near Madagascar, yeah? So I like, when I do workshops, I like people to participate. So I cannot reward everyone, but I will reward those that have courage to talk, yeah? So in life, there will always be winners, and there will always be those that are silent. But for those that want to practice their English, I will do my best to help you. So the choice, of course, is yours. Yeah? Now, I only have 4 more copies, so not everyone will be walking away with a dictionary, so you know. So, one of the big challenges in Angola, like many places in the world, is that when they learn English in a classroom setting or at an English center, oftentimes what you find are teachers who teach one style of teaching English. And that we would call a grammar translation style. They teach grammar and the students write down the notes and the teacher talks the entire time, right? We would call that teacher talk time. And then when the students leave the classroom, they stop speaking the English and they start speaking whatever language that might be their first language, right? So the idea here is that where can English learners practice the language outside of the classroom? And that is the idea behind English clubs. That if you create English clubs that are sustained by its members, regardless of whether they are attending school or they're doctors or nurses or whatever, they have an opportunity to practice their language. And so this is creating a different space for learners to practice their language. English clubs are not classrooms. They're not a place where you teach English. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. So normally I have my computer so I can see the slide coming ahead, but here I'm going to have to discover the slides as they come with you, yeah? Okay, so today's goals is to give a definition of what English clubs are. All of you, or most of you, or at least your organization have received some kind of book. It could be the leader's book, it could be a member's book. I will also give you my email address later, and I will email you a book online. These books are free, meaning we are encouraging you to photocopy them and distribute them widely, yeah? So they are yours, they were created by the State Department, and so feel free to do with them as you please. Although if you keep them in good condition, they will last a long time. So, and these books today were provided from the U.S. Embassy in Luanda. So it is a big investment for you, but we hope you enjoy it. So we're going to talk about English club, English language clubs. What's the definition? We're going to explain how English clubs enhance learning. And we're going to discuss ways English clubs, how to create English clubs. Membership, leadership, meeting places and times. And we're going to share practical ideas about sustaining English language clubs. Again, since these aren't classrooms, they're sustained by members. Yeah, members taking leadership. And then we're going to exchange ideas about fun, interesting, and enjoyable English language club activities. So, part of this number 5 is that when you walk into my class, when I teach English, what you will see, what you will hear is a lot of noise, yeah? Because how can you learn a language if the classroom sounds like this? But this is what you find when you go to classrooms in Angola. You hear maybe the teacher talking and everyone is very quiet. It is impossible to learn a language if your students are remaining quiet. So if you were to walk into my class, you would hear something I call controlled noise, yeah? Where everyone is engaged. In English clubs, where there are just learners and no teachers, English clubs should you should hear a lot of noise, a lot of activities. Although my teaching, you would see, it looks a lot like English clubs if you were to go to my classroom. So English clubs are run by kinds of activities. So what is an English club? By the way, this is a picture of an English club we started at the University of Kinshasa. A big part of English club is drama and theater and acting and skits. So these students are doing a theater that they had created, and it was very entertaining and good. So an English club has meetings. That's one of the big things. And meetings that meet on a regular basis. That might be once a week on a Saturday, it might be once a month, it might be twice a year, but basically those are decided by the members and the availability of space. A lot of places where there's a English club at a secondary school, they might be on a Saturday when students don't have class. At institutions like this, it might be just when there's availability and when it works, but essentially that they have meetings, and English clubs always have meetings. English clubs are for like-minded people. They're for people who want to learn English, who want to practice their language, for people who are really want to, maybe they're an English teacher, maybe they're already speak English, but they want to be a part of a community to continue to practice. And the idea here is to create a sense of community. All of you who speak English, you're part of an English-speaking community of Angola. And so every language you have, you're part of that community. And so if English is something that's growing here, then it's a community of like-minded speakers of English. That does not mean you have to speak English to be a part of English Club. It means anybody, regardless of ability, who wants to learn English can come. And that's a big thing about English clubs, is that it is not exclusive, it is inclusive, meaning that it is open to everyone. It's a place to practice your language. It's a place to do community service. You might think, what does community service have to do with English clubs? But the idea here is that if you empower people who are practicing their language to talk about issues that they're interested in, or talking about solutions in their community, and a lot of English clubs that I have helped create have done community projects back in their neighborhoods or where be it. Some have decided to organize a sporting event. Others have decided to clean up the grounds of a hospital. Others have decided to start many English clubs, but the idea is it's a spirit of community and also maybe doing something back to the community. As I say as a professor, if you are only coming to school to learn but you give nothing back to the community, then why learn anything in the first place, yeah? The only reason why we learn is so we can teach somebody else. So English clubs are fun, they're interesting, and they're enjoyable activities. It is an environment that is playful and relaxed. So let's look at what's in the classroom. In the classroom, there's a teacher, there are students, there's academic learning, there's a right, wrong, correct, incorrect answer. It is formal, it is concentration, memorization. There are specific school meeting times. This is not an English club. This is what you see in a classroom. So this model is, we will say, reserved for the classroom, but not an English club. English club in many ways would be very opposite. In the club, it is a facilitator or a leader. Or during an English club, there are multiple facilitators. Oftentimes, different club leaders will run a different activity. Say the club meets for 1 hour, there might be 4 activities, and 4 different members may lead a different activity. It's a shared responsibility. So it's never one person coming and doing everything, because that model isn't sustainable. But if it's a community of people doing things, it's much more sustainable. Clubs have members, clubs practice language, English clubs are creative, they're complex, they're relaxed, they're fun, and they're playful, and they, of course, meet at convenient times for their members. So how do English clubs enhance language use? So I'm a professor, so I'm going to give you a little bit of theory, right, based on research in my field. Language, we would say in the field, is socially constructed, meaning this. I'm going to look for a volunteer. You can sit down. How many languages? You can sit down, it's okay. How many languages do you speak? Three languages. What is your first language, your mother tongue? Lingala? Oh, okay. Where did you learn this?
Born.
You were born, yeah? Yeah. Okay. Do you also speak Portuguese?
Yes, I do.
Did you learn Portuguese at school? Or did you already speak Portuguese before you went to school?
Well, at the school, so.
So you spoke no Portuguese before school?
Yeah.
Really? How many people spoke Portuguese before school? Most people, yeah? He's my outlier. It's the first time this happened, yeah? The idea here is that you might have learned academic Portuguese at school, but before school you might have spoken one or two languages, African languages. But most people, myself, I speak English as my first language. Before I ever attended school, I already spoke English, right? Could I read, write very well? Not yet. That's what school's for. So we learn our first language through playing games with our brothers, our sisters, running around, listening to our moms, and those sorts of things. And so we already have a language before we go to school. So this, in theory, is called socially situated language learning. Or there's a methodology to that later on called the natural method. And so this is how we naturally learn a language. So English clubs are trying to accomplish the same goal, saying if it's fun and interesting, you're going to learn it quickly, yeah? So it's socially situated, meaning you can't learn language without socializing. It's activity-based, meaning we learn language by doing activities. Some of you who have learned English, you probably remember the activities or maybe the games you played, but you can't remember the grammar lesson they taught you 15 or 20 years ago. But you can remember the songs you sung, or the things you did, or the activities. So language learning happens at a faster pace when it is activity-based. Now knowing this, now when you think back to the classroom, if we know that language learning is activity-based, then why do we continually only teach grammar, yeah? Because that's not very activity-based, that's mostly memorization. So, supportive, encouraging, respectful. One of the big things in language learning is to have an environment where learners feel supported, encouraged, and people are respectful. People cannot learn a new language if they don't make mistakes. It's impossible. So if you do not create an environment where people make mistakes, and you support them in making mistakes, and you create an opportunity for them to improve, if you don't create that environment where people can take risks, then you're really kind of causing them to slow down their language. And if you criticize someone, then they don't want to practice. And nobody wants to be around a community who feel that they can't be free to make mistakes. So mistakes are a good thing. And then of course, English clubs are member controlled, meaning that members decide club rules, club meeting times. Members decide what topics to discuss. English clubs aren't a place for someone to have a president who stays for their entire life, yeah? We can leave that to other places in society, yeah? But English clubs, the foundation of English clubs are true democratic little clubs, yeah? Where everybody has a say, and everyone gets a chance to be the leader, and everyone gets a chance to do these sorts of things. English clubs are intellectually challenging, meaning we are talking about things in English clubs that members are interested in. And some of those things can be very normal or basic topics, and some might be controversial. And that's okay, because if you're going to be a fluent speaker in English, you have to be able to have basic conversations and complex conversations. Also, we are all intellectually complex beings ourselves. So we have complex conversations in our own languages. So in English, it should not be different. So English clubs isn't a place to just talk about holidays every time. You might talk about, the situation in Europe, or the environment, or human rights, or whatever issues that the members might be interested in. And then this, of course, is called the affective filter. It goes back to actually number 3. But the affective filter is that when people feel comfortable, their affective filter goes down, and they're willing to take risks with language. And those are some of the Vygotsky and some of the other scholars in the field of language acquisition. If you're so inclined to look them up. Okay, so who wants to practice English? Community clubs. Again, it's open to everyone. Taxi drivers, tourist agents, faith communities, lawyers, artisans, musicians, athletes, professors, teachers, bureaucrats, whomever. We have English clubs at military bases, at law schools, even one at a market, where women who are selling goods at a market wanted to grow their English. Everyone is invited. First steps for a facilitator or teacher. So, for a facilitator, really, when you want to start an English club, you bring together a group of like-minded people, and you start finding people who might be at an upper level of English, who want to be a part of it, want to lead, be a part of the leadership of an English club. Basically through the word of mouth. We started an English club at one of the universities in Angola, and once some of the students started coming, it kind of spread, and more students started coming. Some people advertise. The idea when you speak about creating an English club is, you focus on the goals, and the main idea is to practice English to help the community. And 3, one of the first things for an English club is to find a place where you can meet that is convenient for the members. So these 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then choose the initial meeting time. These are the first kind of basic steps of creating an English club. Now, in the leader's book that you have, a lot of this information is in there. So don't feel like you need to write this down because it's also in the red book. So before the meeting, remember, when you have your first meeting, people are advisors. They're not teachers. In English clubs, we coach. We don't teach. Again, this is something different than a classroom. Supportive, flexible, and nurturing. We keep an open mind. We focus on others. We focus on collaboration, consensus, and community. These are members. They're not students who are part of the club. And of course, again, the club is not a classroom. Okay. At the first meeting, one of the things that an English club should decide with their members is how frequently do members want to meet? That's one thing that you have to answer. The days, the times, the length of meeting, the meeting locations. Sometimes the length of meetings can last 1 hour, an hour and a half. Some like to go 2 hours. It might be a little too long. These are all the decisions that the members should talk about. So if members can't meet on a Saturday, then you should find a place on a Sunday. But you're trying to find times that works for everyone. And these are things you would discuss during the first meeting. At the first meeting, talk about why we're creating an English club, what are the needs of the English club, what are the goals. You might start talking about what are some of the topics or things that people are interested in to discuss at the English clubs. And then you might want to decide what is the organizational structure of the club. So some clubs have a president, a vice president, a secretary, and then a committee member. Some have a kind of a different structure, but again, this is up to to your members. And then a communication system, collecting emails or phone numbers, creating club rules, and then you would have, of course, at some point early on, the election and selection of leadership. So here are some different graphs of different club models, leadership. As you see in number 1, you have leader, assistant, secretary, members. Number 2, you have leader and assistant, and then members are number 3. Every club is a little bit different on how they want to organize it, but you do want to have somebody or a group of people who can kind of help manage the club. I strongly suggest that there's no reason to have a treasurer. You know, some clubs think that English clubs are not a place to collect money. Yeah, so it's really kind of an idea of a free service. Even a lot of private English institutes will create English clubs because it's a way that people can come to the club once a week, and then they might learn about the English program or the institute, and then they may decide to go there. So it actually has become a way for some private English schools to actually recruit new students. Come to the club for free. If you like the place, then maybe you want to be a student there.
Professor, one point in regards to that. Are you finding the situations where the club members, they would like the coffee after or before the discussion? In that case, I think the treasurer can be...
Again, English clubs can make their own decision, but I know one thing in my life, and this is the one thing I know. When you add money to an organization, you allow corruption. Yeah? And so, the idea behind English clubs is that it's a free resource, really. But you're right. Sometimes they may want to have maybe a special event or coffee or tea, but that can be very expensive over time, yeah? So once you start adding in money, you start to add a whole new layer of who's accountable, collecting money, what happens if someone doesn't pay money, and it's just, maybe one day we'll live in a world where money isn't such a big factor, but I would say to maybe make your own decision, but go from your own experience. Yeah. So communication system, the leaders, not just the leader, might alert the members when the next meeting is, or the topics, or find people to run discussions. You can do that through email, phone, or today, everyone has WhatsApp. Yeah, so you can even do it through WhatsApp, Facebook, goes on and on and on, there's Line, all kinds of stuff. This is my colleague, by the way. Her name's Dr. Kathy Malu, and she helped me write the book. And so I wanted to show a photo of her. She's doing a Fulbright right now in England, and so if it wasn't me, she could have been here. So I'm glad she's doing the Fulbright, yeah? Okay, so one of the first things that you do during one of the first meetings is create English club rules. And some of these rules might be time, respect, participation, and we'll talk about politics and religion. So a club rule might be, we expect members to be on time. If the club starts on Saturday at 1 o'clock, members will be promptly on time at 1 o'clock. If they don't come, please let us know so we're not waiting on them. If you're running an activity, you should be there on time. Respect, that members treat each other with respect, that they're polite, that people participate. Now, there's two things about English club that most clubs have. One is about politics. A lot of clubs say that in an English club should never talk about people in politics. Yeah? That you could talk about themes like democracy or human rights, or even about people in other countries like in the United States or Europe, but you should not use the English club here to talk about anyone in politics, yeah? Because one, it could be dangerous, yeah? And two, that's not the purpose of English clubs, but it is the purpose to talk about broad themes. So a lot of people say in our English club, we will not talk about elections or people in politics or political parties because it's just not, we don't live in an environment where that's applicable, yeah? But if you want to talk about the United States, about how awesome Barack Obama was, he's okay, yeah? If you want to talk about Trump, you can too, yeah? Okay. English clubs are not a place to talk about religion because some of us are Catholic, some of us are Protestant, some of us are Muslims, some of us are atheists. But again, once you bring religion into the mix, it can become decisive, yeah? I like to say some people pray on Friday, some people pray on Saturday, some on Sunday, some on Monday. Or like me, I'm a kibongist, so I play music all on Sunday. Do you know kibongist? You don't know kibongist? How do you say kibongas in Portuguese? Pascal, tell us. Cambista. Yeah. No, I'm not a kibongas, yeah? I've been there and I've met the prophet, yeah? He's a good guy. I had to take off my shoes, yeah? Because it's Holy Land. But anyway, English clubs aren't a place for religion. And then, this is also a rule that I found interesting, especially in Congo. Some of the women in the club said, English club is not a place to find a boyfriend or a girlfriend, yeah? So people want to feel free to come and they don't necessarily want to feel like they're, being chased after by someone, yeah? So these are some of the club rules that you might create. It's good to write on a board and ask the members, talk in small groups, come up with some club rules, then write the club rules out so the secretary can make a note, and then ask the group, should we have this rule or not that rule? This allows members to have a voice in how the club is managed. So these are some of the club rules. So why are club rules important? Some challenges and solutions. Some club members will talk too much, right? So you may have a club rule that when you respond or talk, you have 1 minute to talk, but you can't take 10 minutes, right? So you might have a timekeeper. It might be a club rule. Members choose a turn to monitor to make sure everyone participates. A club rule is to make sure that the facilitator is calling on different people each time. Yeah, that might be one of the things. Members choose a time limit for each speaker. It might be 3 minutes. I think that's a little long, but it's up to the club. Members choose a timekeeper responsible for keeping time. Each activity, if you have 1 hour, then you have to see how much time for each activity, right? All right. Men speak more than women. So research says in many places men try to speak over women, yeah, they talk more. So we understand that a good facilitator should make sure that both men and women are speaking equally and you're creating extra time and identifying that. Some women might choose that for part of the English club that they will meet separately, yeah? If they want to talk about different topics. Most English clubs are blended with men and women, but you do have to make an effort to make sure that everyone is participating equally, okay? Because in some English clubs, it is very male-dominated, and that's not very helpful for others. So a facilitator leader in private or in public should encourage women to speak more. Some meetings have separate rooms for men and women, depending on the topic. So there might be one week that the women might want to organize their own, or the men might want to organize their own to talk about certain topics that they feel more comfortable talking their own sex. And then again, they may be blended depending on the topics. Some meetings, and this is just the same thing. So a lot of English clubs might do a skit or a drama or theater to role play about the problems of maybe men talking more than women or not being balanced. So you could tie this into an activity we'll get to later. So this is an English club in Brazzaville, Congo. And as you can see, actually in the picture what's funny is they're doing a skit here. Yeah, they're actually doing a skit about Ebola and how to protect yourself from Ebola. And then later they had set up a table where one of the students was pretending to be a reporter and he was interviewing Michelle Obama, yeah? So one of the women was pretending to be Michelle Obama and it was called like a fake interview. These are the kinds of activities people find fun and interesting there. So members argue about, one of the things is one thing you do want to kind of not have happen is have members argue about grammar, vocabulary. They can argue about grammar and vocabulary, but again, this isn't a class. They can discuss controversial issues, just not politics or religion. One activity in English clubs is called Red Pen. And Red Pen is where somebody who has a high level of English takes a notation of the mistakes they hear throughout the English club, and then at the very end of the club, they'll report back to the club, I heard this mistake, this mistake, this mistake, here's the correction, yeah? But they don't say such and such made a mistake, they just make a report. That's called Red Pen activity. Of course, during the meetings, you might have one member to monitor, remind members of the club rules, which is very important. Club rules, we like to call it KISS. Keep it simple, silly. Meaning that English clubs are supposed to be fun, And you don't need to make complicated rules, right? Just very basic rules that people can kind of follow. So what happens and when? 2 sample agendas. Oftentimes in English clubs, they'll write the agenda up here on the board so everyone understands the program of the English club for the day. So I don't know if you can see, like, sharing ideas, they have theater, then they have an interview, then they have music, and then they have a debate between educated men, women and uneducated men, I think, something like that. I think that was what the debate was about. It was very interesting. And then by the agenda, you might put the time that's allocated for each thing. These are some of the activities you can do in an English club, which encourages people to work in pairs or groups or as a class. This is I believe, the African Academy, which is in Bukavu, Congo. Here's another kind of agenda for a club meeting. Here, the members sing a song for 10 minutes. Members present news report, meaning members may find news articles or stories in their community or nationally or internationally, and they may come back and discuss a couple news stories happening in the news. A lot of people will really enjoy that activity. Members form groups. We do a lot of group work in English clubs. Groups share their action plans. Leader wraps up meeting. Secretary announces the next meeting date, place, and time. Members select news reporter song for the next meeting, and then club meeting ends. Okay. So we do need to talk just a little bit on how do you hold an election for an English club. And if I had a whiteboard, I would show you how to do it. So I'm just going to have to talk you through. Everyone is encouraged to nominate leaders. After you decide, you'll have whatever positions, president, vice president, secretary, member at large, what be it. People are encouraged to nominate themselves or other people to run. So in this, you have a leader, assistant leader, a secretary, maybe a timekeeper. And then if you have 3 candidates or 4 candidates for president, they would come to the front, they would give their speeches of why you should vote for them. Yeah, maybe they're going to be the president for 1 year. And then when they're done, you'd have the secretaries or the assistant leaders, et cetera, before you vote.
There's one question,
One answer.
Yes.
You have one question, I have one answer.
Is there any criteria for, let's say, president to become the president of the organization? Is there any criteria? Must there be someone who can speak English fluently, or?
Well, no. So this is a good question. He's asking, should whoever becomes the president, should there be certain things they have, or should there be certain requirements? The thing is that what I found in all the English clubs we've started, the members realize, like, this guy doesn't speak English, or she doesn't speak English, or she speaks really, they usually, once you hear them give the speeches, you know right away who you want to vote for, because you're going to have some people who are very articulate, who have good ideas, and some people who just wanted to run for president, but they don't know what it means, yeah? And so here's the candidates here, they're giving their speeches, it goes 1, 1, 1, 1, and then you open it up to the people to ask questions. You say that you're, like, example, you say you want to be the president. How will you manage club meetings, and what will you do for us? And then they will give their speeches, yeah? And then people get to listen, and then people self-select who they want. And every time I've seen that, they've always picked really good candidates. Actually, Pashko, he ran for election. What was your position?
Vice advisor.
So in his club, he's the advisor. So he gave a speech, and people voted. I think there were like 5 candidates he was running against. So they do a pretty good job. By the way, when people nominate, you can see on the backboards, you write their names, who's nominated, right? And that's going to come important for when you actually vote. Once they're done giving their speeches, you open up to the members to ask questions. That's very important. Here we're doing an election. We distributed ballots. Basically you just cut out ballots, and you have the names on the backboard. So they write 1 name for president, 1 name for vice president, 1 name for secretary. So when the ballots come back in front of everyone, you just count and you put a line next to their name. So it's very transparent on how the elections are run. People can see how many people have voted. You have somebody collecting the ballots and you have two judges, yeah? They look at the ballots and then the person reads it and the person marks it, yeah? So here we're collecting ballots. So here we are, you choose two volunteers, one person to open it. Here are the judges right here actually. So the ballots are actually here and the judges are checking the names to make sure they can read it. If they can't read the name or somebody put two names for president instead of one, the ballot's thrown away, yeah? That's how it works in the real world, yeah? And then this person here, the judge looks, and then this person here reads the ballot, and then you put the check next to their name, yeah? So one of the important things about showing members how to do a democratic election is that not only are they doing it in English, but they're actually learning a very important skill, right? Because we think in democratic countries, running a transparent, free election is important. So how can we expect young people or learners to understand an election if we don't show them how to do an election before they really have a big election, yeah? So it's a good exercise of teaching people what a good and fair election looks like, yeah? So no paying money or beer for votes, yeah? That's not an English club. Okay. Then you announce, yes?
How do they manage the English club without money?
Because, believe it or not, there are so many things in life you can manage without money, yeah? But how do they manage? They ask the school or place, can we use your room for free, yeah? We're all students here, or we're all members here, or we do it at church. So they have a place for free, yeah? They bring their own enthusiasm because everyone wants to practice their English to the club. Now, if the place is free and their enthusiasm is free, explain to me why they need money, yeah? But if they need coffee and tea, then that's a different story, yeah? But if you bring money into it, people will run away, yeah? Not everyone can afford to go, yeah? Okay, you announce the winners, everyone's happy. Okay, we are now going to move to the more interesting part of English clubs, and that are some of the activities. So, while we talk about the activities, before we start, I have this like little checkbox here. What are some fun activities people can do to learn English? Now, I have learned as a professor that the very best students in my classes are always close to me, yeah? They're always in the front of the class. And some of the more lazier students are way far back sleeping and dreaming about sucophilia or something. How do you say that? Sucophilia? What's the food? Elliot, what's the food I like?
Kizaka, saka madesa.
Oh, yes.
Saka folha.
Sacafolha, yeah? So if you are way in the back dreaming about lunch, if you could come closer and make sure you're sitting next to someone. So you three gentlemen, if you could just come a little bit closer. The next activities, you have to sit next to someone, yeah? So you have a space between, so maybe you can move over. So if there is a space between you and the other person, if you could come together. So I'm asking you to please sit next to somebody, yeah? He is alone, so maybe you can come up here. So can you guys sit closer together? There's not a snake there, yeah? And then activities cannot work if you're not sitting with someone, yeah? Very good, yeah? This is a tough crowd today. All right. If you are sitting next to somebody, very good. Kashmir, who are you going to sit next to? Who are you going to sit next to? Oh, I didn't see them. They were hiding from me. Okay, so someone's next to someone. Okay. So this is a speaking activity. Start thinking. I want to hear from you. So I want you to talk to your friend right now in English and maybe make a little list. I gave everyone a little piece of paper, yeah? So you can use the back of the paper, right? Make a list of 4 or 5 activities you think you could do in an English club, yeah? So take 3 minutes, 4 minutes, speak in English, and make a list of activities you think you could do in an English club. You may begin.
O que você pode fazer em inglês? Sem falar inglês. What's friends do you can do in an English club? What kind of
Speaking French.
yeah, so you must yeah. Never was in an English course.
Yes, but a long time.
Like he,
It's not just about food. It's all about food.
what kind of like song, cantar, songs.
No entendi.
It's kind of like singing the song. Dança.
No.
So I can do activities like people like sing, dança, song, cantar.
Escreveu.
Dancing.
Whatever group has the most interesting activity for you will win a prize, yeah?
A mais interessante atividade vai ganhar prêmio.
Whoever gets the most,
Mas aí tá lançado.
Sim.
Okay, you have 1 more minute. 1 more minute.
Para ganhar prêmio. Uma atividade nova
Okay, you can stop writing. Let's listen to some of the ideas. Okay, who has an idea? Share your idea. Or I can, yes.
One only or more than one?
What?
One or more than one?
Read me all of yours. Okay, wait, let's make a roll. If he says the idea, let's say he says you can have a debate, yeah? And then I ask someone else to tell me, don't say the same thing, yeah? So you have to actively listen. What are your rules? Or what are your activities, sorry?
Yeah, so first one,
First one?
reading.
Reading, how can you use reading in English club activity?
Excellent question. So,
Excellent, he said excellent question. Let's hear an excellent answer.
so what we do is we can have a book so that everyone in the club is going to read during between one and another meeting.
Okay.
In this meantime, they read the book, and in the next meeting, they talk about the book.
Okay, so, good idea. Now I think this is a good idea. So, you could, let me see what I have here. Oh, yes. So I have this little story, yeah? It's called, like, telling lies, yeah? So, it would be extensive, maybe, I could find a short story, and if you could print it, you could, but if not, you could read it, yeah? And then you could discuss the story. But he has a really good point when it comes to reading. And that is that reading is also an activity that is social. So creating a book club. So finding books where members could read might be one obstacle, yeah? Although, how many people in Rwanda have been to the Information Resource Center at the U.S. Embassy? Has anyone been there? Oh, you have. So Drick is sleeping, so, oh wait, he's awake. Or we have the American Corner as well. There you can find books. Actually, there are resources. So if you wanted to find books, that could work. What's another idea? Give us your one more best idea. One more.
Well, we have other four. So yeah, another one is karaoke.
Karaoke.
Yes.
Okay.
Singing.
Singing. That would be good. Yeah. Okay. Good ideas. Who else has some ideas? Yes.
Actually, saying there's a transaction like the first day, you can recognize by start talking about yourself.
Okay, so you could have a group discussion or small group discussion where members can have opportunities to talk about themselves. Yeah, that could be. That doesn't have to be it could be the first day. It could be somewhere else. Okay, who else? You have an idea? Yes.
We can use story building or solving dilemmas.
Yes. There's activities where you could do story building, right? For instance, one way of doing this is you create a circle, and I start the story, and then he adds to the story, then he adds to the story, and it comes around, yeah? That is active, yes.
Acting in a playbook.
Acting like role play,
Yes.
that is a big one, yes.
One is an actor, one is an actress, and then act each other like a play. For example, like Romeo, Juliet.
Yes. Today that's a great idea. And today we're going to do maybe a quick play. But it's not going to be Romeo or Juliet.
Hamlet.
Huh?
Hamlet.
No. I said we're going to do interesting plays. Yes.
I'm not sure if it's been mentioned already, but it's detection. I do that in my class very often. So I played a tape when the students listen 3 times, and then on the 4th, they start writing down.
You could do that as long as it's fun and interesting, but you have to resist being a teacher trying to make it too much of a classroom. But if it was a fun and exciting, like you could play a song you love. Say that you really like a Beyonce song, yeah? And you could play it a few times, and people could write or talk about how the song makes them feel or what they do. But the idea is that it shouldn't be too academic, it should be more free. Yes?
Visit an exhibition or museum.
Very good idea. A lot of English clubs organize field trips. So they might visit a museum, like you said, or a national park, or something along that. So believe it or not, it was really interesting when I was in Comoros and Congo. A lot of the members had never been to the museum, which was a mile down the road, or the national park. So those are things that might involve a little bit of money, but that would just be for a special occasion. Yeah. Yes?
A sport activity like basketball tournament.
You could do that as a special activity. Very good, yes. We'll do 2 more, 1 and 2, yes.
Well,
3 more now.
We talked about how to get involved in the community, like how people, like as an English speakers, we have a big knowledge of the world, so we could share with the community what we can do to help.
So community service, yeah. We call that service learning or volunteer work. Good idea. We'll do 1 and then 2 and then we'll finish, yeah.
Another one that would be really interesting is like having different topics, putting the numbers, students come and they choose a number. According to the number they choose, there's a topic. For example, talk like things you like, you don't like, talk about yourself, talk about your family. So they have 1 minute to talk about that. So the other ones are kind of using it.
That's an excellent language. Very good. And last, we'll do 1 more, yes.
One thing that I also believe that will make people talk is that to talk about things they love, parents,
yes,
job, things they love to do.
I've also been to many English club meetings where they have top conversations about boys and girls will talk about the best ways to date or love and these sorts of things. So things that they love, things they're interested in are what you want to go towards. So this is an English language club. Does this look like a classroom? No. This looks like a lot more fun. And I promise you, in this kind of environment, people are learning a lot faster, yeah? Because everyone's practicing their language. Today, we're going to discuss some of the following activities. First, we call it the activity brainstorming, how to choose a topic. 2, a facilitated group discussion. We will try that. 3, group conversations. 4, skits or role play, as mentioned. 5, debates. Next one, guest speaker or mock interviews. I already talked to you about Red Pen, right? About finding someone who collects the mistakes and they report later on. Then we're going to talk about games and music, in the news, community projects, and special events. So, choosing a topic. So, topics should be chosen before the meeting, meaning this. If today was our first meeting for English Club, we do the club rules, we do the club elections, we decide on a time of meeting, and then at the end of the English Club, on a board, I'm going to say, what topics do you want to talk about next time? So think about some topics that you want to talk about right now, and if I was to ask you what topics you would like to talk about, I might hear somebody says, I want to talk about traveling, or I want to talk about tourism, or I want to talk about dating, or I want to talk about, I want to have a debate on abortion, as an example, yeah? Or I want to talk about, it could be anything, yeah? Tribalism, anything. Oftentimes people want to talk about issues they're interested in, yeah? So I would write all the topics on the board that the members wanted to talk about. Now, next meeting, we can't talk about every topic, right? So, okay, here are the topics. Who here wants to create an activity for your topic? I will create the debate. Okay, you're responsible next week or the next meeting to run the debate. I want to talk about how to get a visa to travel to Portugal. Okay, next week you will talk about that. I want to invite somebody to come speak to the club from the U.S. Embassy. Okay, you will be responsible to organize to see if they have a speaker, yeah? Or I want to talk about life in Cabinda. Okay, you will be responsibility to run a group discussion. So you're choosing topics, but you're also choosing the members who want to lead that activity. That is what we call brainstorming. Ask members to share the topics they want to discuss, write down the ideas in a blackboard, make sure somebody is taking notes, i.e. hopefully the secretary. Vote. People will vote on topics. Voting on topics is okay, but if nobody is going to run the activity next meeting, it doesn't matter if everyone wants to talk about it, yeah? So you can only talk about things that members say, I will coordinate, be the manager of that activity, yeah? Okay. Brainstorming. See the brain in the light bulb? All right. Facilitated group club discussion. Pick an interesting topic and choose a member to lead the conversation. Introduce the topic. Have members raise their hands to participate. Make sure both men and women participate. Ask questions to keep the discussion going. Don't dominate the conversation. Allow members to do most of the talking. We can all read that. We all understand that. But I know as a professor, you don't really understand something until you try it, yeah? So let me lead you in a 4-minute group facilitated conversation, okay? So this is an English Club today. We have chosen to talk about African languages in Angola, yeah? And I'm going to lead the conversation as a facilitated club discussion, yeah? So this is as a whole club, okay? So let me introduce the topic. So today's topic is why are young people in Angola choosing not to speak the African languages only for speaking Portuguese? Why is this happening in places like Cabinda and even Luanda, where young people can't even talk to their mother and father in their first African language, but they will only speak in Portuguese? Is this a problem for us Angolans and our club? Should we try to change people's attitudes? That is our topic today. This is what we're going to be discussing. Now I want to hear from the members. Do you have any ideas or opinions about this? Yes?
Yes. We have a couple of problems. The first one is that during colonialism, Portuguese made it very clear that our languages were compared with the language of animals.
Okay.
That's one of the reasons. So another thing is that our mother tongues are less used in the domain of, in the public domain, and that's also another reason.
Okay.
And we can actually mention many other reasons.
Okay, good. Who would like to respond? Yes.
There's another thing, is that this is the case of many families here, that the father is from one tribe or one ethnic, and the mother is from another one. So they don't speak a common language, but Portuguese.
Okay, good point. Yeah, yes.
I would say that's my parents' fault because my mom speaks Kimbundu and my father also does, and they never spoke to me and to my brother. So I felt like I never learned anything. My oldest brother, he actually understands a little bit, but what about it?
Okay, so should we be blaming this all on our parents then? Is it all their fault?
Yeah.
No, especially to me.
Well, for you, but I'm just asking, yes.
Both my parents, they spoke Kimbundu, sorry. We are from deep north of Angola, and because of colonialism, they forbidden us, they wouldn't let their children, we and my siblings, we were forbidden to speak Kimbundu.
Mm-hmm.
They both speak Kimbundu, but they wouldn't let us speak Kimbundu because they think that the way to improve socially, maybe to have another kind of life, would be not to speak Kimbundu.
Okay,
Yeah.
interesting. You also like, yes.
My position is very
Tell the members your position.
Okay. My parents speak Kimbundu, but I was born where Kimbundu is spoken. So I do understand a little bit. I'm sorry, a little bit because but they
never spoken to you. Yes.
Well, I'd say that I had the same experience as them, but the problem is when I got older, I understood that, okay, they couldn't do that for me, but it's my turn to change things. If I really want to learn the language, I have to do something for that. Because, I mean, they already did it, and time passed,
Right.
but I should try to do something to make a difference to my kids.
Great. So now she's saying that, hey, things have happened in the past. Colonialization, parents not speaking it, students, people being taught that it's a low status. Her point now is that, but we today can now make that different choice, and we can start speaking. Now it's our responsibility. Do the members agree or no?
It's not easy.
It's not easy, okay.
I was telling my colleague here that I can understand if when old people are speaking English, I understand them, but I can't even
grasp them.
speak in Bundu.
Okay, let's do him first. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's another thing. I remember when I was at university, we had this subject, Bantu linguistics, and it encouraged most of the class to look for somewhere, a place or person who could teach you the language. But there are two problems with this. I'm not only going to look for problems, but there were two problems. The first problem was it was difficult to find people willing to teach the language. In fact, they themselves were trying to free from their local languages to speak Portuguese or English or another language. That's the first problem. And the second problem that I found at that time was, well, so in this case, let me go look for a school. But in the province where I studied, there were no schools teaching local languages.
Okay.
Here, I think we might have one or two. So we face those two problems.
Excellent point. So his idea is that what does it say when the government doesn't even let us teach our own languages?
Yeah.
Because we're not still colonized, but they still don't. Okay, this is an example of a facilitated group discussion, yeah? This is a very fascinating topic. that if this was an English club, did you see how everyone was interested in the topic? Everyone had an opinion. These are the kinds of topics you can talk about in English club, yeah? These are important topics that you might find solutions. You might come to an idea like, what can we do to promote local languages, yeah? So this was, now as the facilitator, my job was to make sure men and women were participating, one. My job was to make sure that different people were talking, two. My job was to make sure one person wasn't talking the whole time, three. And then my job was to try to bring understanding for the club member to continue the conversation or to come back and ask a question, yeah? That's how you do a facilitated group discussion. Actually, in my opinion, this is how you do a good lecture. Because if this is the way you approach didactics, then you would have a very good lecture because it's interaction. Remember, students or learners are not empty vessels, yeah? Everybody is coming with their own experiences, their own languages, their own knowledge, right? So in clubs, we're just discussing things to add to more language to that. Someone had a question? Yes.
Yes, I think that there's something very interesting as a young. Some of us are not interested in learning Kimundu, Kikongo, because we're just interested in learning English in order to facilitate the child.
Right.
Yes, because there are people who ask questions like, how or what am I going to win with learning Kimbun, for instance?
Sure.
I'm interested in finding a job as quick as possible.
Right.
And I have to learn English,
Yes.
French, to facilitate in getting
Finding a job, yeah, getting a job.
child.
Okay, so this could be a good topic to talk about in English Club, yeah? So this kind of topics or explanations you could have in an English Club. So just let me answer your question. First, let me be clear about one thing about English. English clubs or English club learning is not meant to subtract another language. So, English clubs are to be an additional language with whatever languages you already speak. Meaning then that people's first languages, whether it be Portuguese or African languages, have a right to be in an English club. Meaning that people, even though they're coming to practice English, they should not be criticized if they need to speak in their first language. Yeah? So English, I hope in Angola, can be more like a partner with African languages than saying English is here and local languages are here, yeah? In linguistics, we know all languages are the same, yeah? Your languages are a key to your past. And when you remove that language, you have lost a path to your history. So this is a way of thinking. Now, I'm just saying this as a social linguist, as a professor, away from this discussion. But I understand that people need English, Portuguese, French to acquire jobs. But they should not attain those languages if they are subtracting another language. Last point on this. All research says, we've got to move on with my presentation. But yes.
Actually, while the discussion was going on, I had this sense that some people want to speak more.
Yes.
And because you want somehow to give equal time to everyone, the issue of cross-culture can also come there.
You can talk about culture and language.
Cross-culture, yes. We know that some cultures, in the African context, some cultures they take a path for a longer time than the others. So in other words, some actually keep the flow for quite long and others not. So how do you handle that? Because, as I was saying, some people actually might feel...
What is the solution for handling time? Who should we have? A timekeeper, yeah? To monitor the club rules. The club facilitator should also monitor and say, okay, let's move on to the next person. That is the role of responsibility. but you made me forget what I was trying to say, so now I need to go on. We have to go on, there are many activities, but just think, this is an interesting topic, yeah? So this is something you should come back to from an English club and talk about. These are the kinds of topics you can talk about if you want. Okay, I don't know what I was going to say, so I'll just move on. Okay, so group discussions. English clubs work best when you do group discussions, right? Group discussions, you have groups of 4 or 5. In groups, when you break into groups, if you had tables, you can do like a group of 4 or a group of 5. In the group, members of the group should have a responsibility. So if you 4 were a group, I'd say, okay, there's one group leader, there's one group reporter, there's one group timekeeper, and there's one group vocabulary. So when they talk in a group, each of them have jobs, yeah? They might talk about a topic for 10 or 15 minutes, and then at the end, we'll hear from all the different groups. Does that make sense? Those are group activities. We will do a group activity later on. We can get there. Okay, skits and role plays. This is very easy. We're going to come back to this, but we're going to do a quick skit to show you how this works. Skits and role plays are a great way to teach things or to learn about things in society. If you allow students to write a skit or a play, they are very entertaining and interesting. Okay. What are some topics that could be debated in an English club? Could be anything. You might want to have a debate on how can Africa become a technological society? How can we create and become a digital society and get more women into technology? Or what are the best ways to, what are the best ways to modernize an economy? Through privatization or through government ownership. You might talk about really sensitive issues like should children be allowed to go to prison, or if they break the law, is it fair to have them go to prison, or should the parents be responsible? It could be about abortion. You might debate, which language is best, American English or British English, yeah? And that answer is so easy. It's American English, yeah? You could really debate about this if you wanted to. There's a ton of different things you could debate about. There are ideas in your books you can look at. So, obviously with a debate structure is you have a pro team and a negative team, a pro and a con. Whatever your debate topic is, you will have a group of 3 or 4 individuals who argue for it, 3 or 4 individuals who argue against it. The club hears the debate, and then the club members ask questions after the debate, and then the club votes on who won the debate. Okay. So, a guest speaker in a mock interview. So, one of the greatest things about English clubs is you could invite guest speakers. You can invite them from the embassy, from the university. Maybe you can't find somebody to come in for the English club. You could create yourself a guest speaker. Maybe an expert in the club to talk about something they're familiar with. So the idea is the guest speaker can speak in English. They can be doctors, schools, universities, organizations, embassies, libraries, or someone within your community. You basically introduce them to the club, they speak for 5 or 10 minutes, and then the club might ask questions in English. It's a really great way to invite people to the club to learn about things. You might find speakers from Chevron, or some from a big bank, or from the government, or who would want to come in and speak. There are a lot of people always looking for opportunities to speak. Plus, English clubs can learn something about the topic. So, mock interviews. A lot of times, you could do mock interviews where people can get practice interviewing for a job, or you could do a fake news conference where a reporter is asking somebody questions about something. You could do expert interviews or celebrity interviews. You could interview, find somebody in the member who wants to be somebody famous, yeah? So you could interview Mobutu or something, you never know, yeah? And it might be very funny and interesting, yeah? He's from another country, so it's okay to make fun of him, yeah? You could interview somebody who's a club member. So these are different activities you can do, not every club meeting, but throughout. Red pen we have talked about. Appoint someone to listen to the member's mistake, record all mistakes in a notebook, share the mistakes at the end of the meeting, don't use their names, ask members to correct the mistakes. Okay, so now we're going to practice a little English. And what I'm going to do is, so I have these cards here. I can email you this, and sometimes you have extra games. It's called Activate Game. But this might be a typical English club meeting. On one side of the card, you have photos, yeah? And these are like, basketball, soccer ball, volleyball, baseball, yeah? And so on the other side of the card are questions. So essentially, he holds his card like this. You work with one other person. And I hold this card. You got to show me the pictures, yeah? Just like that. See how I'm doing? And then I'm going to read him the first question. Which games on the card do you play as a team? Which do you do as an individual? Basketball. Okay, now read me your first question.
Which drink on the card is the healthiest and why?
Oh, there's no beer on there. Water, because if it's clean, it's very good, yeah? Okay, so I'm going to pass these out and then I'm going to collect them back. So you need to work with one other person, yeah? And here you do work with them. He doesn't have someone to work with, we're giving one to him. Okay, take one each. Take these three and hold on. Oh, you have one extra. Oh, you have two extra. You guys want to try? Okay. Others of you are going to get a different kind of card. But before you guys start, you guys, one second, time out. So you might see these two. These are a different kind of card, yeah? So on the back of the card, this is more hard. This is different than that, yeah? So if you get this card, this is how you do this. So I keep the card hidden, yeah? I don't show the picture, right? And on the top of the card, it has something. This one says, things you save, yeah? So I ask the person, I'll ask you, what are some things you can save?
Money.
Money. And I have money listed, yeah? What are some other things you can save?
Gold.
Okay, so if he says something that's not on my list, I can give him hints. What about time? You can save time. What about energy? Yeah. So if they're not saying the word, give them hints, yeah? This is another activity. Now you may continue, yeah? But I'm going to give you my email address later. And if you email me, I can email you these cards and you can cut out. Also, these are some, for those of you who create English clubs, if you can stay in contact with the embassy, sometimes these sorts of resources are available for English clubs. But they're available for English clubs that are actually English clubs, yeah? So, not an English club in theory, like, we want to start one, but like, no, we have an English club, we need more resources, here's some of our photos. So, for those of you who start English clubs, sending Elliot some photos of your activities allows the embassy to say, they do have something here, let's see if we can get them maybe some resources we might have. And sometimes the embassy has resources, so I would encourage you, yeah?
Speaking on that, I'd like to know how far you will be involved, or the embassy will be involved in helping us create these.
Well, I think the idea behind today is that I'm giving you the practical tools to actually go out and create it yourself. So English clubs are only sustainable when individuals go and create them themselves. So after today, now if you are going to create one, that's the hope, that you will create them, you will start organizing them, because you don't necessarily need the embassy to support them, but once you do create them and you have ongoing meetings, there are resources that become available that we can give to English clubs, yeah? And then I'm going to share some other ideas with you and ways to stay connected.
Just one question is, what if one of my colleagues, for example, she creates a that becomes, she charges money to become successful?
Then I would expect her to fly me back to Luanda, yeah? And let me stay at a very nice hotel. I hope that your colleague does start an English club, and I hope she does become successful in speaking English, yeah? That is the goal, is that everyone is successful in speaking English, yeah? Oh, you meant charge money. That's what you said. Well, again, once the English clubs have been established, they're your English clubs, yeah? I know that English clubs that charge money are difficult to stay open, yeah? But our idea is that you create free places for everyone to learn. So, okay, we are going to do, normally this next activity would be a skit or a theater, yeah? But since we have limited time, we're going to read the script, yeah? So before we pass them out, I need some volunteers. So, what's that? No, English is involved. You will be rewarded with practice in English, yeah? So Pascal, if you could come up. I need one woman who would be going to come up. You will be Susan. You can be Patrick. I will be the narrator. Pascal, you'll be bandit number 1. I need another volunteer. Look at this guy here, very nice. You'll be bandit number 2. And then I need one more male volunteer. There you go. You will be Paul. Okay. So, not yet, but we will. Come on up here. Normally you would act this out, yeah? So we wouldn't have a script, yeah? We would have been practicing and we would have just acted. But today we're going to read it. So let's come to the middle of the
Paul?
You're Paul. He's on the last page.
Okay.
Yeah? So we're going to read a story, yeah? So pay close attention to the story. Now, if this was an English club, I'd introduce the story like this. This is a skit, yeah? About love and health. And this is a story we want to share with you. And then we would act it out. So here we go. So everyone knows their part, yeah? Okay. Susan, where's Susan and Patrick? Where's Patrick?
I'm Patrick.
You should be next to your fiance. Susan and Patrick love each other very much. They are engaged to be married today. Susan is visiting Patrick. He is very sick with malaria.
Susan, my dear, I'm so sorry to tell you that I have malaria and I need some medicine. I don't know how it's possible for you to get me pills at the hospital.
Of course, I'll go to the hospital and get some for you.
Susan leaves early the next morning for the hospital. When she arrives, there is a long line. She waits all day for the pharmacist to serve her. It is dusk when she begins to walk home. Suddenly, a group of bandits block her way.
Stop. Give us everything you have, or we will kill you.
No, I won't. I have medicine for my fiancé. If I don't give this to him, he will become very sick.
Really? Okay, here's what we will do. If you have sex with us, we will let you return to your fiancé with the medicine. If you don't, then we will kill you.
Susan cries, and she begs, but the bandits do not change their minds. Finally, Susan agrees to have sex with each of them. When Bandit 1 is finished, he tells her to go to Bandit 2. Susan goes to Bandit 2.
Go! I don't want to have sex with you. Run to your fiancé and don't stop for anyone.
Susan runs away quickly. When she reaches Patrick, She is sweating a lot and she is out of breath. She is very, very upset. When Patrick asks her what happened, she tells him about the bandits.
How could you have sex with bandits? You ruined our plans for beautiful life. Leave, I never want to see you again.
Susan begs Patrick not to understand the dilemma she faced, but Patrick does not listen to her. Finally, she leaves his house, but before she goes, she gives Patrick the medicine. After she goes, Patrick takes the pills. Meanwhile, Susan walks slowly to her home. On the way, she meets her father's friend, Paul, and she tells him the story.
This is terrible, Susan. I can't believe that Patrick is so cruel. Did he understand you did this for him? I'm going to punch him.
Paul finds Patrick and beats him badly. Then Paul goes back to Susan and tells her what he did. And Susan looks at him and she smiles. Okay, so you folks can go ahead and sit down. Let me give each of you a copy of the story. Yes. Now, don't worry, English Club. We are going to read over the story one last time, and then we're going to do an activity, okay? But I want to give each of you the text. Normally, in an English club, we wouldn't have the text because you would just watch the acting, yeah? But now we're going to look at the text. So once everyone has the text, we will continue. There are 2 pages to the text. Page 4 and 25. You guys have the text yet? I think we need more text up here. Who does not have the text? You got more? Here, I got it. So everyone has the text. Do you have the text? Okay, we're my actors, you can stay seated. Let's just read this over one more time so we clearly understand, okay? So if you're Patrick or Susan, make sure to read your part, okay? So as we read over this, you can follow along reading. Susan and Patrick love each other very much. They're engaged to be married today. Susan is visiting Patrick. He is very sick with malaria. Patrick?
Susie, my dear, I'm so sorry to tell you that I have malaria and I need some medicine. I don't know if it's possible for you to get some pills at the hospital.
Of course, I will go to the hospital and get some for you.
Susan leaves early the next morning for the hospital. When she arrives, there is a long line. She waits all day for the pharmacist to serve her. It is dusk when she begins to walk home. Suddenly, a group of bandits block her path.
Stop. Give us everything you have or we will kill you.
No, I won't. I have medicine for my fiancé. If I don't give this to him, he will become very sick.
Really? Okay, here's what we will do. If you have sex with us, we will let you return to your fiancé with the medicine. If you don't, then we will kill you.
Susan cries and she begs, but the bandits do not change their minds. Finally, Susan agrees to have sex with each of them. When bandit 1 is finished, he tells her to go to bandit 2. Susan goes to bandit number 2.
Go. I don't want to have sex with you. Run to your fiancé and don't stop for anyone.
Susan runs away quickly. When she reaches Patrick, she is sweating a lot and she is out of breath. She is very, very upset. When Patrick asks her what happened, she tells him about the bandits.
How could you have sex with bandits? You ruined our plans for a beautiful life. Leave, and I want to see you again.
Susan begs Patrick to understand the dilemma she faced, but Patrick doesn't listen to her. Finally, she leaves his house, but before she goes, she gives Patrick the medicine. After she goes, Patrick takes the pills. Meanwhile, Susan walks slowly to her home. On the way, she meets her father's friend, Paul, and she tells him the story.
This is terrible, Susan. I can't believe that Patrick is so cruel. Didn't he understand you did this to him? I'm going to punish you.
Paul finds Patrick and he beats him badly. Then Paul goes back to Susan and tells her what he did. Susan looks at Paul and she smiles. Now, real quick, what happened first in the story? What happened first? Can somebody tell me?
What happened?
What's the first thing that happens in the story? Patrick is very sick, yeah? Who comes and visits Patrick? Susan. And Susan is his what? Fiance. Patrick asked Susan to go buy him what? Because he has medicine. She goes to the pharmacist, but there's a long line. She waits all day. By the time she goes home, it's dark. Who does she run into when she gets home? Okay. So, bandit number 1 says, give us everything you have or we'll kill you, yes? And she says, no, I can't because Patrick, my fiance, is very sick. I need to give him his medicine. I could die or whatever. So then bandit number 2 says, fine, you will have sex with both of us. And then, Susan goes to bandit number 1, they do the sex, yeah. She goes to bandit number 2. He says, no, run away, don't stop for anyone. She runs home and she tells Patrick, right? Yeah. Is Patrick happy or angry? He's angry. He goes, how could you ruin our life? Run away, we don't ever want to see you again. You ruined our beautiful life. On her way home, she sees her father's friend, Paul. She tells Paul the story. He gets angry, he goes beats up Patrick. Susan smiles, yeah? Here's your activity in your group, yeah? Your group must have 3 or 2 or 4, yeah? On the back piece of the paper, you have characters, right? Susan, Patrick, bandit 1, bandit 2, and Paul, yeah? In your group right now, in this English-speaking activity, I want you to list the best person, the second best person, the third, and the fourth. And everyone in your group must agree. So who's ever the person you think is the best person in this story, they're number 1. The second, the third, and who you think is the very worst person should be number 4. But your entire group must agree. If someone says, I don't agree, you must talk until you agree. One person in your group should make the list. One person in your group should make sure everyone is talking, yeah? Okay, you have 4 minutes to come up with your list. You could even find news stories on our website or on different websites or on BBC or CNN, but basically maybe 2 or 3 members might pull what they think is interesting to bring in. Could be Angola news, but it might also be a great way to connect with Embassy's Facebook because there's a lot of scholarships, activities, programs that people never hear about because they don't go to it. So that could be part of in the news. Yeah. Let's see. Always talking about news from the United States is always kind of funny and sometimes very sad, but it's always good. Okay, so community projects. So this English club, they gave themselves a name called, I've never heard this before, but I don't know where they found it, but it was called Yes We Can. Have you ever heard that? Yeah, it was very strange to me. I thought, wow, that could be a political slogan one day for me. Yeah. But anyway, they called themselves Yes We Can. They're in Comoros. And they thought the best way to learn English was by doing community projects back. So they, as an English club, they thought these were interesting topics. They would identify a local community problem. Then, as an English club, they would discuss in groups or as a whole group, how can we find solutions to the problem? They would decide how they could help solve the problem, and they could organize an activity to give back to the community. So here, they're actually, they had written a small little grant for just $300 or $400. They had gone to the U.S. Embassy and the U.S. Embassy, and the South African Embassy and said, hey, on Nelson Mandela Day, we wanted to clean up the hospital grounds, yeah? And the Americans and the South Africans said, yeah, here's a couple $100. Here's some gloves and trash bags and all that. And they, on this day, they cleaned up the hospital, yeah? And they did it in English, and this was their way to give back. So they identified a problem, they thought, what can we do to solve the problem? And then they actually did that. This, English Club has the possibility to create leaders amongst us. And it creates opportunities for us to do good things back to our community. And it makes a difference. Possible projects: cleaning up a public park, a beach, a public space, recycling, volunteering with a non-governmental organization, or finding ways to teach other people English. There are all kinds of projects that English clubs can do. They don't always have to be serious. They could be fun. They could be like an English camp or a competition or a spelling bee we have. They chose the hospital. Special events. This month is the holy month of Ramadan in many parts of the world. And this English club in Comoros wanted to have something called an iftar. So at the end of the day, when they're done fasting, they organized a meal for English clubs. These are all English club members. And they just thought this would be a fun activity. Now, you could do something similar in your own community. Maybe it's around a holiday or a religious event, or it could be anything. But the idea is that English clubs can take different kinds of shapes and venues. It could be a New Year's celebration, or maybe a New Year's celebration from a different country, a holiday party, a Halloween party. It could be many different things, yeah? But this, you can see by these kinds of special events, this is what creates community, yeah? Where people get to have fun. There's no teacher here, they're just having fun. Sporting games, singing competitions, spelling bees, art competitions, volunteer projects, visiting schools to promote English. Every year there's a day called Earth Day. Some English clubs spend that day planting trees or volunteering at a garden. These are all fun activities. If you do activities while you practice language, you learn it very quickly. So in conclusion, we talked about defining an English club, creating English clubs, membership, leadership, meeting places, challenges and solutions for sustaining English clubs, English club activities. And so one idea you can think about as you leave is what's one activity that you learned today that you might want to try in your own English club. So I would suggest once you start them, you take some of these ideas and you try them out. Two things. If you have a pen, let me give you some information right now. So, how many of you are on Facebook? Does anybody here use Facebook? Just a couple people? Okay. When you go to Facebook, if you search, I don't know how you say it in Portuguese, but in English it's @. Yes, in English, @ Africa English Clubs with an S, @ Africa English Clubs, one word, yeah? You will find a Facebook page for English clubs throughout Africa, from Comoros, Congo, Rwanda, Burundi. There are even some in Angola already on there, yeah? But you search on Facebook the @ Africa English Clubs, clubs with an S, one word. If you join, you will see ideas that English clubs are doing throughout Africa. This is a great place to post maybe your photos and to see photos from other places. Actually, if you join today, there's a good chance you're going to see a photo of yourself already on there. You never know. So I need you to go on there to tell me if you don't like the photo, I can take it down, yeah? Put a different one up. And then I want to give you my email address because I have many resources for free. I just want to make sure I give you the right one because I sometimes forget it. Okay. So if you send me an email, I can send you the Activate game. I can send you cards. I can send you free books on email. I can send you the English Club manuals. Lots of things. So here's my email address. And it's my last name with my initials. It's SMEDLEY, B as in B as in boy, S as in Sam, @ gmail.com. So my last name is Smedley, and my initials is BX, so it's SMEDLEYBS@gmail.com. Okay, I have just a couple more questions before we conclude, okay? Okay. If you know the answer, you can raise your hand. Where can you find free English materials on the internet? I gave you a website to look at earlier. Does anyone remember? I said, there's American what? American English State Farm. Okay, that's what I got. That's for books, yeah? Okay. Who can tell me what are the two topics you should not discuss in English clubs?
Politics and religion.
He was the fastest one. He was waiting for that, yeah? Okay, let me think. Okay. Can anybody remember my colleague's name who spoke this morning?
Catherine.
Now, if you've already won, you can't win twice. Okay, I only have one left. Yeah? So I had to think of a hard question. Now, if you've already won a dictionary, you can't win two, okay? So this will be a hard question. I believe it's today. Okay. What is the name of President Trump's son? No.
What?
What'd you say?
Eric.
No.
Donald.
Donald Trump
Joe.
has
Trump
a son.
Jr.
Do you know what his name is?
Donald Trump Jr.
Donald
Donald Trump Jr. I use it.
His son that lives in the White House. He's a little boy. If you don't know that, I will ask you a different question. But let's see if and no looking on your phone. If you knew this answer, did she look on her phone?
No.
You looked on your phone?
No, she didn't.
Okay. Here you go. Baron Trump, yeah?
Oh,
Now he's a fashion center. And Pat Kroll, you cannot answer this question. Does anybody know the state I live in?
Idaho.
Idaho. Okay.
I
I only had one of these. Yeah. There you go. Oh, sorry, that's a T-shirt. Yeah, with Idaho. Okay. First, I want to thank everyone for coming. It was nice having you today. I hope that you take this opportunity. You send me an email. You join Africa English clubs. You stay in contact with the embassy. But this was an effort to help encourage people more opportunities to practice English. So thank you so much, and thanks for coming.
Thank you.